Welcome to Shattering Myths, a program devoted to the most important, to the fastest growing segment of society, to those who know that the world's political, religious, military, and economic institutions are corrupt, they are counterproductive, and they cannot be fixed. Unlike the gentleman who was an American politician during the beginning top-of-the-hour news that bemoaned the fact that America is bankrupt and that it is grotesquely immoral, and had committed himself to prayer and to fixing it, we're not going to go down that path. First of all, because God is not interested in the lives of Americans. He is not only not interested in America, he despises America. And that's not my opinion. Read the 18th chapter of Yahowah, Isaiah. And God wants us to walk away from our country, not to engage on behalf of our country. If you don't think that's true, then read the opening book of the Torah, Bereshit. You'll find it as Yahowah begins his conversation with Abraham. It is a prerequisite to being part of the covenant. And if you are not part of the covenant, God is not talking to you. He is not listening to you. He does not care about you. Those are just the facts. So we ought to be really careful when we pretend that we are talking to, working with, and have the support of God, as this idiot politician did, as he was cited by the news from the Christian and therefore misguided radio syndicate called Salem. I received an email this morning, and it's from not only for a long-time friend, but somebody who really is active in sharing Yahowah's testimony. He has a website that I would encourage you to visit. It's a wonderful website. It's called blessyahowah.com. He wrote, "Isn't it upsetting that we all jump over a guy, and rightly so, for spewing out racism all over a private phone conversation, but give a so what and shrug off the atrocities committed all over the world in the name of Islam? What's wrong with this picture?" Signed Richard. To which I wrote, Donald Sterling is a creep. Good riddance. But the reaction to his words was so overzealous, so politically correct, that we're in peril of losing our freedom of speech as a result. When freedom is limited to saying only that which is considered acceptable, you do not have free speech. In every communist country, during a time that communism was so pervasive on this planet, and we besmirched them for not having freedom of speech, they were free to say whatever the government and the media and the party thought was appropriate for them to say, but no more. In every Islamic country today, you're free to say whatever the imams, the Quran, Muhammad, and the politicians in charge tell you is appropriate to say, but no more. Is America reaching the point where you're only free to say that which the media, the politicians, those who influence and control society think you ought to be able to say? It's not freedom at all when what you can say is constrained in that way. Equally important is the issue that you have raised, Richard. But it's not just Islam. What about Kerry's statements regarding Israel being an apartheid state? If I'm aligning these things correctly, the Donald Sterling lifetime ban and multi-million-dollar fine is going to be used as a litmus test to limit what we can say about many more things. It will soon limit discussions about homosexuality. Statements considered Islamophobia will be banned shortly thereafter. Then what's next? America is celebrating that which it should be lamenting. Scott, who participated in our Sports in the News segment on Monday, sent me this excerpt of a story that is being I'll put on the news wires now. Floyd Mayweather, who Scott says I'm not a fan of, but it's hard to be a fan of Floyd Mayweather. He is a real creep too. He is a wife beater. He is interested in buying the Clippers. I could go from a racist to a man who perpetrates violence against women. I guess that would be a real positive move, huh? Anyway, he says that he is interested in buying the Clippers. He says, says the narrative that Floyd Mayweather had, though, is one that the world doesn't want to discuss. No one has the courage to say such things, but Floyd Mayweather does. He says, I don't have nothing negative to say about the guy, speaking of Donald Sterling. He's always treated me with the utmost respect. Floyd Mayweather, who happens to be black, by the way, said he's always invited me to games. Always. He says, hey, Floyd, I want you to sit right next to me and my wife. It's a very different picture of the man than the rant that was recorded and dated to a large degree indicated the other day. When Richard wrote me this letter, it reminded me of the story of what's happening in Nigeria, where hundreds of young girls were kidnapped from their school by Muslims and hauled away. And because of the story we read of what's occurring in Egypt, where Christian girls are being taken from their churches, taken from their schools, taken from their homes, taken off the street and out of shops, and hauled into captivity by Muslims, raped by them, tortured by them, forced to convert to Islam by them, enslaved by them, and often murdered by them, that is the fate of these 200-some-odd young girls as well. Well, here's a story on that advances this reality and screams out to me as to why the world is so focused, why there was so much talk about Donald Sterling's racist remarks that, while offensive, didn't actually injure anyone. And yet Islam goes unscathed without a moral outcry, righteous indignation to expose and condemn the religion worldwide. Here's the story. Many of the schoolgirls abducted, perhaps all of them, by Islamic militants in northern Nigeria are believed to have been taken to neighboring states, a local leader has told the BBC. Pogo Britris said that there had been sightings of the gunmen crossing with the girls into Cameroon and into Chad. Many of the girls had been forced to marry the militants, he said. In Islam, there is a special provision for slaves. Not only does the Quran say that sex with slaves is lawful and good within Islam, so that rape, therefore, is authorized in Islam, but when Muhammad had a little pushback from his fellow Muslims about the fact that he could have a harem with scores of women in it and even children in it, and that the average Muslim was limited to 4 wives, so as to, I guess, keep more women available for Muhammad. What Muhammad came up with is the temporary or short-term marriage. What this enables a Muslim to do, let's say if they have 3 wives, that their 4th wife can be in a rotating position. And that 4th wife can be a prostitute. That 4th wife can be a victim of rape. So long as you're not raping 2 women at the same time, so long as you're not engaged with 5 prostitutes simultaneously and exceeding your number, it is considered a marriage within Islam to be when you are raping a prostitute, when you are raping a slave, one of your kidnapped victims. So when they talk about are married, marriage in Islam is not like marriage in a civilized culture. Marriage means that that captive, the kidnapped victim, the slave, is the property of that man. It is not a mutual consent where both parties have chosen that they wish to live their lives together, that they wish to build a family together, that they will respect one another, that they will love one another. There is no love. There are no rights for the woman. She is simply the property of the man. That is what marriage means in Islam. Mr. Bitrus said that 230 girls are still missing after the Islamic militants attacked the school 2 weeks ago. The Islamist group Boko Haram has been blamed for the nighttime raid on the school, and it has not yet commented on the allegation. However, the reality is obvious that it was Muslims. The comment then from the non-Muslim population, they say it is essentially a form of medieval slavery. Boko Haram's leader, Abu Bakr Shekau, first threatened to treat captured women and girls as slaves in a video that he released last year in May of 2013. So Boko Haram's leader, who is an Islamic cleric, has specifically stated, and his statement is available to watch in a video form, that it is appropriate, and not only appropriate, but it is an objective of Boko Haram, the Islamic fundamentalist religious terrorist organization, to capture Christian girls, to kidnap them, to enslave them, and to rape them. It is, by the way, the same thing that the most senior Saudi Arabian cleric, imam, said about Jewish women, telling Muslims that Allah had made them available to rape. The Islamic cleric, Abu Bakr, who is a student of the Quran, understands the hadith of Muhammad, which is his sunnah or example, and he put out a video where he threatened to treat captured women and girls as slaves, which means they would be treated as sex slaves. It fueled concern at the time, of course, that the group who this article says is adhering to ancient Islamic beliefs that women captured during war are slaves with whom their masters can have sex, correspondents say. The correspondents, but how pathetic can they be? I mean, really, how pathetic can you be? How ignorant can a journalist be? You know, when you are wholly ignorant, when you don't do any research, when you're incapable of discernment, are you still a journalist? It's not ancient Islamic beliefs that say that women captured during war as slaves with whom their masters can have sex. It's the Quran. This is not even in the Hadith. Is it in the Hadith? Yes. The Hadith shows countless examples of Muhammad and his first Muslims as militants attacking Jewish and Arab communities and killing the men, enslaving the children, and raping the women. So, was it the practice or the sunnah of Muhammad to do this? Absolutely. But the authorization for Muslims to have sex with their slaves, and it's not slaves captured in war, it's slaves, period, is authorized in the Quran itself. It's not an ancient belief system. They're not adhering to some obscure practice of Islam that somehow corrupted the religion. This is in the, I'm going to use the term because it's appropriate, goddamn Quran. Dam means to separate, folks. God is wholly separated from, disgusted with. The Quran is, we should be. And so here's the world in an uproar over Donald Sterling, and you've got an Islamic cleric not only putting out a video that explains that good Muslims can rape their kidnap victims, but you have journalists incapable of distinguishing the fact or communicating the reality that this authorization is in the Quran itself. That's pretty pathetic. Reminds me of something else. I just read a story that Oprah is considering buying the Clippers. After I completed Kiwa Terrace and Prophet of Doom, I did some 2,500 to 3,000 hour-long interviews on radio, telling people the truth about Islam. And at the time, I wrote a letter to Oprah because she had spent all of this time interviewing Islamic clerics and Islamic women who were high-ranking because they were married to Islamic kings, trying to present Islam as this lovely religion that we ought to embrace and accept, and that to disassociate Islam from the terrorism that it was perpetrating. I wrote her. I said, no, you're promoting something that's not true. And if you're going to have a talk program that's informing people, you at least ought to present the other side and use evidence and reason to demonstrate that the views of those guests that you've had are erroneous. I got a letter back. I said, no, we're not willing to even consider the presentation of those views on Oprah's show. And now she's one of those that wants to buy the Clippers. So let's constrain speech. Let's say that you can't say anything negative about African Americans, but you can lie on behalf of Muslims who are mutilating hundreds of millions of little girls, who are raping little girls, who are kidnapping little girls, and yet we're going to promote lies about that religion and excuse their behavior, but you can't say something bad about a black. Come on. One last comment on the last subject we were talking about. There is no reason. It's embarrassing, it's stupid, it's irrational, it's ignorant to say the things that Donald Sterling said. All he did is a self-inflicted wound. He made himself come across as a complete idiot and worthless individual. You know, in the areas that it matters in terms of character, he's worthless. I don't care how many billions of dollars are attached to his name. But folks, at the very most, at the absolute extreme, he may have, although there's no evidence of it, prevented an African American individual from being invited to sit next to his girlfriend, mind you, the man's married, at a basketball game. And he may have prevented an appropriate number of African Americans from renting his apartments in Koreatown. That's the full extent of what he may have done in terms of actually enforcing his disgusting view. And yet the world, America, is just absolutely fixated on crucifying this man. And you've got Oprah wanting to buy his team. You've got Floyd Mayweather wanting to buy the team. And yet, the Islamic cleric over Boko Haram, the fundamentalist Islamic terrorist group, accurately cites the Quran and says that it is appropriate for his terrorists, and being a terrorist is also appropriate and condoned, encouraged in the Quran. It's appropriate for his jihadists to kidnap girls, to enslave them, and then to rape them. And he isn't corrupting his religion. He's quoting directly out of the Quran. And there's not a single voice raised condemning that, saying that such a religion, such a book, has no place in society, when in fact it's not just that they're saying it, but they're doing it. And that there's over 100 million little girls that have been sexually abused because of Muslims in this world today. It's not a case of somebody may have been deprived from attending a freebie game, that somebody may have been deprived of living in an apartment. These are little girls by the hundreds of millions who have been sexually abused as a result of statements in their religious scripture, the Quran. And yet, all of America is besmirching one while ignoring the other. We have lost the ability to be moral as a nation. I'm not telling you it's the average American. I'm just saying as a nation. It's media. It's politicians. Be clear. The media is fixated with one and saying nothing about the other. Barack Hussein Obama commented on one and said nothing about the other. Its religious institutions and its military have lost our way. Lost their way. I'm not part of any of them. It is a grotesque breakdown in the ability to exercise good judgment, to be moral, to be civil, to be just, to be right, to be fair. We've lost it, folks. And this story is a great example, but not for the reasons that are being promoted, for the reasons that aren't being told. In our first segment on Sports in the News, Aaron, Scott, and I told the story that wasn't being told about Jamison Winston, who, at the very least, has engaged in sexual assault against women, and yet is paraded out as a Heisman Trophy winner and national champion quarterback, displaying the actual nature of his character, and also then displaying the breakdown in Florida jurisprudence. The Florida State quarterback and reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Jameis Winston, was issued a citation on yesterday, for shoplifting at a Publix supermarket. Now, he shoplifted food, happened to be crab legs. He's on a full academic ride at Florida State. All the food that boy can eat is available to him, free. He went into a Publix supermarket. That's P-U-B-L-I-X, not a public, but Publix supermarket, and stole crab legs. Quote, he got an adult civil citation, a source told the website. If he completes the sanctions, it will never show up on his record. They commonly give them to juveniles on their first criminal offense. They are now doing it for minor misdemeanors, shoplifting, the minor misdemeanor, for adults to lower the crime rate. Yeah, talk about sleight of hand. To lower the crime rate, what you do is you don't report crime. Now that means no matter how many crimes are being perpetrated, the crime rate looks like it's going down because you simply don't call it a crime anymore. No, you get cited, but that's it. And here's a young man that has been accused by 2 women of sexual assault. And now he goes in and is a shoplifter, and he gets a civil citation that will never show up on his record. What we're doing is encouraging this young man to continue to be grotesquely immoral. And we're telling all of those who are fixated on accomplishments in sports that this is the right path to follow. You'll get by with it. If you're really talented as an athlete, you can do whatever you want, and everybody will applaud. A source told SB Nation that Winston will be fined $30, that he will be required to do some community service and will be suspended, not thrown off, the baseball team, not the football team. Oh, but he's 1-0, has a 1-0 record now, wins to losses, with a 1.5 ERA in 16 appearances this spring. You know, Winston was named to a preseason All-American team as a utility player by Baseball America. Oh my, but they're going to suspend him for the baseball team. He'll have to pay a $30 fine. In December, as you know, the state attorney in Florida decided not to charge Winston after he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman at an off-campus apartment. On December 7, 2012, the quarterback had faced felony charges. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has subsequently opened an investigation into Florida State University's handling of the allegations against Winston and potential Title IX violations at the university. So what do you think, Aaron? Does this young man have a problem? Or does society have a problem? Or do both of us have a problem?
I think both have problems.
There's a real issue with the Florida Tallahassee Police Department.
Out of curiosity, what would you have the punishment be for this particular crime?
Well, shoplifting is a misdemeanor if it's under $500 in virtually every community, every state in the country. If an adult, and he's an adult now, is found shoplifting, and he no question he was shoplifting there. So if it is a misdemeanor, and the misdemeanor is that you serve some jail time and you have a fine, I would have him serve some jail time. You know, it might be for a first offense as a shoplifter. You know, it might be a week in jail, and it might be a $5,000 fine, something of that nature. And you just, you know, what are the average statistics on the punishment for shoplifting? It's theft. It has to be punished. If it isn't punished, then why wouldn't everybody be a shoplifter?
Yeah, I would agree. And the $30 fine is much. I thought it would be in the hundreds somewhere, like 500, maybe 1,000. I think 5,000 is a little high, personally. And a week in jail, while it could be appropriate, I mean, the history of celebrities and sports stars and things like that not getting any punishment is pretty long.
Yes, but you know, that's what's broken.
Oh, I agree, it's definitely broken, but what I'm trying to say is this isn't terribly surprising to me in any way.
Well, the fact that he wasn't actually cited for and doesn't have a court appearance, wasn't indicted for shoplifting, and simply gets a citation that says, do a little community service and we'll overlook it. It'll never show on your record that you committed or were accused and committed shoplifting. That doesn't work for me. Theft is a pretty standard crime. You steal, there has to be a consequence, and it's either jail time and or a fine or both, and they both have to be a deterrent. I have an employee on my farm in Virginia, and this young man had a history of not at work but apart from work of drinking too much, and his mother and father I think got out of his life very early on, was a violent alcoholic. His mother was an alcoholic, is an alcoholic, and they encouraged it. And he got in the wrong crowd in terms of even girlfriend, and one night he found himself in his girlfriend's apartment with an unloaded pistol, and she called she got mad at him. He's drunk. She called her friend, who she was dating also at the same time, a cop that she was dating, on him. Cop showed up and almost killed him. Now, the cop never admitted that he was dating the same girl, and that's why she called him. But my employee was thrown in jail. He spent felony charges rendered against him, spent 45 days in jail. We'll talk about that when we return. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. I want to finish the story of this young man, but before I do, works on my farm in Virginia. With Jameis Winston, I explained what I would have done if I had been the police department. I would have charged him with the crime as it appears in the books. I would not have given him a special dispensation. Now, if I was Florida State University, I would have kicked him out of the school. I would have expelled him. He has been accused now of 2 sexual assaults, and he has parlayed that into shoplifting. So there is no remorse on his behalf, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and no attempt to change and improve his life. Now let's talk about this young man that worked for me for a number of years, and then blended alcohol and a handgun, unloaded, but alcohol and a handgun, a really bad combination, in an angry argument with his girlfriend. And the girlfriend called a police officer that she was also intimate with there, and it looked like there was a setup of my employee. And he is evidence of the fact that the police officer was dating the girlfriend was never made public during the trial, which means it probably could have been thrown out. But there was a plea deal, and my employee, who I've never asked, but I think he is a combination. His last name is Nguyen, but it's spelled with a G, and it's the Vietnamese spelling. So I think his parents, who are not together, but a blend of Vietnamese, African American, and Hispanic. He's kind of like me. He's a mutt racially. I don't mean that in derogatory terms. I'm using it to myself. A blend of many different races. Anyway, he went to jail. We talked to him during this whole process, and he says, "Oh boy, what I did was wrong. It's obvious I can't drink. I'm an angry drunk. I can't drink. I lose control when I'm drunk." He says, "I have made a pledge that I will never drink again. I will get treatment immediately, and once I get out, I'll go to AA. I will never drink again." you have my promise on that. He says, I will never, ever see that girlfriend again that got me into so much trouble. I will no longer hang with any of my friends that do drugs or that drink or get into trouble. I will find an entirely different group of friends. I'll never do anything like this again. He was remorseful, and he said, I'm going to change. My wife and I paid the mortgage on his home while he was in jail. And when he got out, we took him back. We said, we want to listen to you now. Tell us your view of what happened. He says, I was wrong. What I did was inexcusable. And I have not had a drink since. I will never drink again. He says, I got to tell you, he says, just having stopped drinking, he says, the way my mind works, my ability to think, just to feel good, he said, I've never felt better in my life than I feel right now. He says, I know what I did wrong. I will never do that again. We've given him several raises since then. Now he's the senior manager of our farm in Virginia. We treat him more like a son than we do as an employee. So why would I kick Jameson Wilson off out of school? So he would not participate in any sports activities. And here's this young man that I paid his mortgage. She gave him 2 raises and welcome back with open arms. The difference is a realization and acknowledgement of what he did was wrong, and a commitment to do the right thing going forward. So I just want to say I think that when we don't accept responsibility for what we have done that is wrong, and if we don't make an effort to change, then we ought not be given second and third chances, as is the case with James Winston. But I think we ought to be given second chances. I think there ought to be forgiveness when forgiveness is deserved because of a person's willingness to acknowledge what they have done is wrong and a willingness to do the right thing going forward. We'll return to Shattering Myths after the news at the top of the hour, and we will continue to comment on the news. Thank you.